Good morning, beautiful people. I know it's been a while. I did not go live and did a book reading. The reason is I've been going live every day on my TikTok. And if you'd like to follow me there and catch my lives, we do a lot of book reading as well, a lot of Bible study, and different things. But I'm gonna try to keep up with this as much as I can. And today, our book reading is by Sarah Knight. It's called Calm the F Down. You know, everyone worries about one thing or another. We sometimes worry about the things that do not exist or are unlikely to exist in our time. The worries we put ourselves through might be mild or severe. But the fact remains that the severe ones started mildly and can lead to huge disasters. Worry on its own is a normal thought process. But overdoing it is what's killing a lot of people mentally. And in this book we're going to be reading now, you'll find out why we worry and why we shouldn't worry. Worrying kills self-esteem and establishes chaos, while when we allowed to overcome your mind, when you allow worrying to overcome your mind, it will kill your self-esteem and will establish chaos. When left alone, worry and anxiety have enough power to decrease one's self-esteem completely. Worrying causes us to feel like total failures, especially for those who attach it to their self-esteem. When we worry, we become unsettled, thereby limiting our level of creativity. The more we worry, the bigger our problems. When our problems continue to pile up, it becomes increasingly difficult to implement sustainable growth in our lives. Too much worrying also makes us messy and chaotic in nature. And as a result, we allow anger to control us, and we end up making decisions we regret. When things happen, circumstances are what they are. Tires get flat, wrists get broken, and files get mistakenly deleted. You'll be frustrated, anxious, hurt, angry, or sad. But you are right there in the thick of it, and the only thing you can control in the equation is you and your reaction. You're the only one who has the power to control your reactions to situations. Your behavior is what will rub off on other people who may support you or neglect you. Calm yourself down and appreciate whatever you have. There is no point in having a panic attack toward something that is totally out of your control. If you address a problem with a lot of worries in your heart, you'll only make the problem bigger. Take your time to examine every situation, outline your plans, and follow the necessary steps needed to function well. You need to consider outcomes before committing to give in your worries. Your time, energy, and or money spent should result in great joy for you. Anxiety is a natural phenomenon that every human must experience in life. Everyone suffers from anxiety. It might be about something small, like completing the last thing on our to-do list, or the concern that we should be reaching out to our loved ones more often. It's possible we're worried about something more complicated and big enough to affect our lives. The fact remains that we all worry about something. The source of our anxiety might be hard to find, or it could be obvious. Depending on the situation, knowing the source of our anxiety isn't the problem, it's in getting rid of the anxiety. The low hum of background anxiety that disrupts our lives comes from our worries about things that haven't happened yet and things that already have. All of our anxiety is related, and it can be attacked with realism, pragmatism, and logical thinking. We must identify and isolate the specific underlying problem one at a time, and we must pay maximum attention to it. Anxiety comes in many forms, and for a novice, it can sometimes be hard to label. One of the most toxic and frustrating side effects of being anxious is overthinking. Overthinking is counterintuitive and dangerous to productivity. When we worry too much, we let sadness overtake us for long periods, and this leads to more significant problems. Ongoing sadness is very exhausting because it causes us to get less productive. Another frustrating side effect of anxiety is anger. Anger causes us to make rash decisions that can be quite dangerous if left unchecked. When this happens, it becomes difficult to process our thoughts in the right way. We become inconsiderate and less productive when anger controls us. When we are faced with anxiety, most of us resort to avoidance. We overlook the problem by simply forgetting it and pretending it never existed. As easy as avoidance might be, it's never a lasting solution. We must repair ourselves with self-care instead. This is possible when we treat ourselves the way we would treat a sad friend in need. Self-care involves being kind, taking naps, eating chocolates, taking a walk, etc. Take one step, no matter how small, toward acknowledging your problem. Each step you take puts you closer to a lasting solution. Did you know, according to the Anxiety Disorder Association of America, did you know, according to the Anxiety Disorder Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the US, affecting 40 million adults in the United States. Worrying is wasteful, It costs time, energy, and money, and gives us nothing useful in return. To conserve how much we spend on worrying, we need to create freak out funds. Freak out funds exist in a virtual world that lives in our head and controls our lives. It's the fund we spend whenever we have to deal with anything. Like real money, it can be exhausted, and that's why we need to spend it wisely. Instead of wasting time worrying about failing a class, you could spend your funds on studying, mock exams, and attending online classes. Instead of wasting energy pacing around your apartment worrying about something you can't change, you can do something more productive instead. And instead of spending a lot of money on fake products that will only last for a short period, you could spend large and enjoy the products for a more extended period. Overcoming anxiety requires decluttering. Decluttering is the mental clearance of our worries. The two steps of mental decluttering are discard your worries, organize your response to what's left. Discard, then organize. The way we begin these steps is by looking at whatever problem we're worried about and asking ourselves important questions about why we're worried. One thing we must realize is that it's okay to have emotions. Having them is not the problem. It's when we let these emotions run rampant at the expense of taking action that we start having problems. There's a lot of science that says we must allow ourselves to feel terrible about the bad stuff, that we have to go through it to get past it. This is especially true when it comes to trauma. While it's true that emotions can be dangerous, it's okay to freak out a little bit. We shouldn't be at the mercy of our emotions. We need to use them, enjoy them, and dominate them instead. Giving into anxiety over something unlikely decreases our confidence and creativity. There are 5 categories of every situation we go through in life. The highly unlikely category, the possible but not likely category, the likely category, the highly likely category, and the inevitable category. The categories listed above show the scale of preference of every situation we go through in our lives. Our thoughts are based on these 5 categories. When we start thinking about situations based on probability, we'll begin to realize that we don't have nearly as much to worry about as we thought we did. When it's normal to worry, it makes no sense to be too anxious about the first 3 categories listed above, which are the highly unlikely category, the possible but not likely category, and the likely category. Once we have logically, rationally determined that a what-if situation might blow out of proportion, a good follow-up question is, how soon is it going to land? An unlikely situation not only hasn't happened, but we also can't be sure it will. Theoretically, unlikely situations should be the easiest to stop worrying about because they are low pressure and low priority. Ironically, however, they cause us the most significant worries. Imminent bad experiences also haven't happened yet, but they're more solidly formed, and we're likely to know if and when they'll hit. We still might be able to prevent an imminent shitstorm, which is a terrible, unwanted situation. But if not, the least we can do is to prepare for impact and lessen the fallout. A total shitstorm is any shitstorm that is already upon us. We might have seen it coming when it was still imminent, or it may have appeared out of nowhere. It doesn't matter whether the effects of the storm would be considered mild or severe. It's here, and we have to deal with it. When shitstorms spiral out of our hands, we mostly can't control what happens, but we can control how much it affects us. We can't control the larger underlying problem, but we can do our part to minimize its effects. For example, in terms of the weather, we can't control the rain, but we can control whether or not we'll suffer its impact to the fullest if we bring an umbrella. Can you stop the rain? You cannot. This is something out of your hand. It is there. You have to deal with it. Now you can bring an umbrella or you can come without an umbrella. It's up to you. Although we may not be able to control some events in our lives, we can always control our reactions to them by taking actionable steps. We must accept the reality of a situation before we can successfully tackle anxiety. The first question you should ask yourself before going into a state of panic is, can I control it? Whatever's giving you anxiety, whatever's giving you worry, ask yourself this question, can I control it? If the answer is in the affirmative, yes I can, then you should channel your energy into controlling it. However, if the answer is no, then you have a long way to go. A frequent feature of anxiety is the inability to accept reality. Reality is meant to teach us that although we may be worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet, the truth is that the thing isn't real yet. A what if exists in our imagination only when it becomes real is a problem we can acknowledge, accept, and address. We sometimes freak out because we can't force the outcome we want. The results of our actions can differ from our expectations. This should not be enough to send us into a frenzy. When unexpected things happen, we should either live with them or fix them if we can. The difference between worrying and calming down is a straight line from things that exist in our imagination to things that exist in reality. The best thing to do in most situations is first to accept the reality facing us. When Corona hit everywhere, we couldn't change it. It's a reality that happened. We had to deal with it. And the question is how we dealt. We had to take precaution, wash our hands, wear a mask, keep our distance. We cannot change the fact, but we can change how we deal with it. When we are faced with worries, there are three options available for us. Letting go of the whole shitstorm, doing something else that's productive, and converting our fears into positive decisions. For example, you don't have complete control over whether your kid turns out to be a bad person. At some point, that's on them. But you can indulge your worries and at the same time contribute to the cause by engaging in child rearing tactics that are proven to result in positives, such as reading to your kids, telling them you love them, and teaching them to say please and thank you. Discard the worries you can't control and spend your freak out funds wisely to prevent, prepare for, or lessen the results of a shitstorm. Assign a category and status to a potential shitstorm, accept the reality of the situation, and determine what control you have over the outcome. Dealing with shitstorms requires that actions are taken and outcomes are achieved in response to our lives. The situation of things and our reactions to them can be ranked on a scale. At the top of the outcome scale is the full fix. For example, you left your expensive phone on the city bus but realize it just in time. You realize it just in time to take off running until a placed red light allowed you time to catch up to the bus and reclaim your property. This is what we call a full fix, where you can find a quick solution. You lost your phone, but you were able to get it back because you remembered at the right time. That's called a full fix. Below the full fix is the salvage jobs. Here, your expensive phone was left on the bus and you didn't get it back, so you had to buy a new one. You dealt with it, but you spent a lot of freak out funds on that mistake. You lost your phone, you cannot get it back, but you bought another one. It costed you, but you fixed the problem. Below that, there is the basic survival outcome. You're on a strict budget and you can't afford a new phone of any sort. You're anxious about missing a callback for an interview and angry that you put yourself in this position, but you still manage to get a phone. In all the three scenarios mentioned above, you freaked out at first, but you still ended up fixing the problem. Which is the most important thing? The outcome we take heavily influences the outcomes of our shitstorms. The principles of dealing with shitstorms include taking stock, identifying a realistic outcome, and applying basic survival instincts. If we land in enemy territory and we have little time to assess the situation before it goes from bad to worse, we need to take stock. We're going to have a grit. We're going to have to grit our teeth and gather the facts as quickly as we can by separating the emotional reactions from the logical ones. When shitstorms happen, a full fix may or may not be possible, which means that accepting what we can control isn't just for calming down anymore, it's also for dealing with it. Making rash decisions will never get you far. It's better to start with a realistic, achievable end goal in mind than make hurried decisions. If the storm is upon us, our fear has outlived its usefulness, but we can still prioritize based on urgency. We need to channel our survival instincts to determine which problems will get worse without our intercession and which stand the best chance of getting solved. Uncontrolled consumption of mainstream media can trigger unnecessary anxiety in our lives. Hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. Many things in the world can trigger unnecessary anxiety in our lives. These things might start as trivial, but they can grow disastrous if unchecked. The media plays a massive role in what we see, think, and feel. If we allow the media to control us, we'll become highly susceptible to anxiety. We must limit our exposure to a considerable stage. We don't need to be gathering information over breakfast, on the toilet, during a trip, and right before going to sleep. An excellent daily news dump should be sufficient to keep us in the know without also keeping our blood pressure high. If you can't dodge the 24-hour news cycle, then for every major news outlet you follow, you should add a trivial account to the mix. Trivial accounts alleviate all the seriousness of the mainstream media and allow us to relax. It may seem counterintuitive, but doing in-depth research into whatever event is giving you sleepless nights can help you defeat some of your fears. For example, researching how nuclear weapons work may help you to stop worrying about the prospect of a nuclear war. You can also channel all the information in your head into creating a journal. Journaling can help calm you down when you move all the burning thoughts out of your head and onto the page. When we're feeling powerless about the state of the world, we can find comfort in acts of charity by donating to a cause. Engaging in charitable acts helps us feel much better about our current positions, and it helps us to become more productive. If spending our freak out funds makes us feel better and helps someone less fortunate, it becomes a win-win for both parties. Our environment is a massive reflection of our lives. If we fail to take care of our environment, it will, in turn, fail to take care of us. When you expend time and energy on communal development, your worries are pushed to the back of your mind. You realize that whatever was bugging you could have been easily solved or avoided. Staying silent on issues bothering us hardly yields any positive result. When we tell people what's wrong, they can help us out or at least relieve some of our more pressing concerns. For example, if we have a deadline looming, we'll feel much better once we inform whoever needs informing that something came up and they undoubtedly grant us an extension. A missed deadline can be an awful, no good situation, but neither a prolonged freak out nor a hazard effort at dealing with it is going to help us salvage it. Take stock, identify your ideal outcome, and then pursue it one step at a time. Several situations may arise that threaten to disrupt your life. Getting through those moments can be challenging, but it's a phase everyone has to go through. For example, if you're getting divorced, it could become a very trying time. This could be happening to you or to someone you love, but either way, it's probably awful for all concerned. Outline all your options and examine them one by one. If divorce is in the offing and there is nothing more you can do to stop your marriage from dissolving, focus on what you can control and on achieving your realistic, ideal outcome. This may be that you have to part ways as amicably as possible. Stay friends. Or maybe it's to get the house, the cars, and full custody of the kids. Sometimes you'll have to get through the whole process without letting your kids see you cry. It won't be easy, but if you can do so, you'll be dealing with it more productively. If your problem revolves around having a baby, there are some things you can try. First, take a deep breath. Second, take a stock of your situation. Ask yourself where you are in terms of your childbearing years. After confronting this question, you may not have the answers you want, but you'll have some clarity about where you stand and what your options are for moving forward. Clarity is good because whatever remains ideal for us is where we can continue to spend time, energy, and money productively. We must spend more time fixing a shitstorm than wondering why it happened. It doesn't matter why a shitstorm happened or who supposedly caused it. All that matters is that it happened, people changed, and we have to be flexible and deal with it. We have to be less concerned about why something happened and focus instead on how to fix what has happened. So much time and energy get wasted when we place blame because it is an impediment to dealing with whatever has happened. Finding a solution is important because determining once and for all who has at fault doesn't fix the problem or make us feel better. Lots of things happen with no warning, which means that we'll often need to be able to organize with little or no advance notice. We'll also be doing all of this mentally before we attempt any of it physically. The idea behind getting over necessary and unnecessary anxiety is to apply universal truth to the whole universe of problems. Probability, urgency, and control are three important aspects of our lives that we must pay attention to. We must learn to prioritize, separate emotional decisions from logical ones, and keep our eye on the possible outcomes of any event. It's important to know that it's possible to trick ourselves into thinking we're getting rid of anxiety when what we are doing is pushing a shitstorm into existence. This is called catastrophizing, and it's the belief that a situation is worse than it is. Things may be very tough, but if we happen to be catastrophizing, we may also be creating our catastrophe. We must live with the knowledge that anything can happen at any time to anyone. Once we accept this, it becomes easier to defeat worries and overcome anxiety. Anxiety is love's greatest killer. It makes others feel as you might when a drowning man holds on to you. You want to save him, but you know he will strangle you with his panic. What is the conclusion from this book? Worries bring about anxiety, and anxiety hardly yields any satisfactory result. While it's normal to worry about many things, we must also learn how to calm down and check out our worries before they get the best of us. Our thoughts influence our actions, and our actions influence our lives. If we fail to get hold of ourselves and control how we react to situations or events, we'll always be at the mercy of our emotions. There are so many things to worry about in our lives. However, we mostly worry about the wrong things. We build a false sense of security around ourselves, and we fill up our lives with imaginary scenarios, and we panic when things go south, a little bit. Life is not always going to be what we envisage it to be. This means that we'll definitely face a lot of surprises, trials, and frustration. What we need to do is to accept the reality of life's ambiguity and work with it. Calming down is essential to our daily growth as well as our mental health. Problems will always come, irrespective of our beliefs or ideologies. If we want to live a sound and happy life, we must calm down and tackle every problem as they come. Finally, try this. Whenever you are faced with a situation that's threatening to force out your anger, take a deep breath, walk down the street, and hum your favorite song. Anger can destroy anything, which is why you have to manage it by walking away when you can. God bless you all, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Check my other videos and like it. Until we meet again. Have a blessed one.